Can you imagine Angus as your tour guide going through a distillery? That would be amazing.
7 hours later.
How many new words have you learned?
Every single tour, there'd be at least 10% of the tour group that get thrown out. Like, no, it's I found something problematic. Get the fuck out.
I did not pay for a chemistry exam, guys. Just give me my whiskey and I'll get out of here.
Excuse me, this is a stupid question. You may leave now.
You're going to have to hand out a pamphlet of, like, here's common terms you're going to need to know. And it's going to be guaiacol and furfurols. And
He's going to give him a freaking encyclopedia.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, to start off with, Roy, yes, there are 7 tracks here. We are somewhat apologetic about it.
I'm not.
Maybe not. Well, I suppose the phrase is sorry, not sorry, but...
It's all fun and games.
Yeah, Roy's right now pulling his hair out. Like, want fun and games? I'll give you freaking fun and games.
Yeah.
All right. Boys all ready?
Rock and roll.
Let's go.
Yep.
Started off in 3, 2, and 1. Hello, Dramfacers. Welcome again to the Colonials podcast. This is podcast number 7. This is our year-end episode. Now, we also know that the elves at Santa's workshop, the Dramface shed up there, the poor guys have been overworked, so we've had a couple of little backlogs here. So this year-end episode may come out in May, maybe of 25, but that's okay. Adam, that's who's responsible. But we have a loaded bevy of talent here with us today. I've got Mike, Adam, Chuck, Stuart, Angus, and Cleon. How are we doing, boys?
Very good.
Doing very well.
Yeah,
Swell.
very good.
Before we get going into our year-end episode, just want to again thank everyone who's been listening, the comments that come to us. You know, I had put in a review not that long ago. Someone was at my house for a big gathering, and they happened to mention, "Oh, have you heard about this website called Dramface?" And I kept a straight face, but my buddy who was to this person's left just dope slapped him in the back of the head and said, "Do you know who?" And so it was been a little bit funny. But anyway, very glad that Dramface is all about the world, all around. People are listening to the podcast. Thank you so much. Seriously. We've been spreading around some whiskey amongst us, and we're going to do some blind tastings and some shenanigans. But as we get going, does everyone have a calibrator in your respective glasses?
We do.
And if you do, Mike, what do you have?
I have a grand old par from the 1970s.
Oh, my Lord.
Screw top. It says it's 70% proof, which we've worked out in Imperial is 40% ABV. And there's 26 2/3 fluid ounces in there.
Wow.
And I'm drinking it from a little old whiskey glass that I got at auction from God knows when, with some strange grocer's name on it. So it's lovely.
And how did we come to a 1970s bottling that you have in front of you?
Well, you know, it's funny. I went to the whiskey show some years ago, and that's when I first encountered really old blends. And actually, one of the first ones I had, I think it was at the whiskey auction stand, was a 1940s old par. And I was stunned by how interesting it was. And I think basically because, as we all know, there's a lot more malt in blends in the old days. And it was just really interesting. It had a lovely long finish. It was quite nuanced. You know, it's not, you know, it wasn't a particularly complex dram, but it was really good. And I had several of them. And so since then, every now and again, I'll pick up an old whiskey, either an old OB from somewhere or a bunch of weird old blends that, you know, with old bottle effect might be absolute crap, but occasionally they turn out to be really good. So, yeah, it's worth the risk, I think, because you pick them up for not a lot of money.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is it old bottle effect, or is it just that old whiskeys from a certain time tasted a certain way, had a certain profile? I don't know. Like, you know.
Well, they certainly had more malt as a rule. That's something which is fairly widely accepted. The old bottle effect, well, you know, Angus, you'd be better equipped to actually break that down if we want to go there. But that's very much a thing, and it depends how it's been stored. I mean, if it's been stored badly, if it's had been exposed to high temperatures, been exposed to too much sunlight and so forth, it's going to have an effect. But it's kind of like anything. Old books start to get fragile and fall apart. I know. I have a collection of really old books. Whiskey's kind of the same. If you don't look after it properly, it's going to deteriorate somewhat.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent for old bottle effect, and to varying degrees. It's that whole thing. Nothing's static. It's just a chemical soup, and there's a whole bunch of different dynamic equilibria going on that are impacted by a bunch of different things. And depending on storage and how it started off, things have different trajectories. So yes, old school whiskey is almost certainly tasted different. In fact, there's some pretty good evidence from people who have been around a long time tasting these things to be relatively good indicators of what profiles have been like as they've come out over the years. But everything's also changing at the same time. So it's like trying to calculate everything in a moving frame, as it were.
Yeah. I would say for this one, I mean, it's clear that it's a low ABV. It's quite thin. It's almost watery on the front of the palate. But once you've had a couple of sips, the third sip, the finish is what I love about this. It's really quite long. There's good warmth on it. There's a lot of fruit. I get a lot of apple pie, nutmeg. It's a drink that you can actually contemplate and get something out of, rather than just kind of like gone, forgotten. So this one works.
I love that. Angus, I saw you go get a bottle. What do you have in front of you?
Well, I completely didn't even think of getting a calibrator, and I absolutely should have. So I've just got a bog standard Glenfiddich 12-year-old. It's about as Glen Beige innocuous as you could possibly want. Glenfiddich, but it gives a calibrator for ABV, just a little bit of sherry cask in there, so you can taste if there's more or less, an idea of rough age / maturation, and just overall style. I mean, the spirit's pretty darn boring, so just a nice bog standard calibrator.
I love that phrase. You got to trademark it, Glen Beige. That's fantastic. Stuart, what's in your glass?
Like Angus, I was not prepared. I had 3 drams set out because that's what Adam sent me, so I was ready to do some blinds. And it's like, what's your calibrator? I was like, oh shit! So I turned around and I took my headset off, so I actually didn't hear what Mike was saying until I put it back on. And he was talking about blends. Funnily enough, I reached just by happenstance for one of the ones that I'm working on right now. Is a half of it is from 1988. So half the volume of the blend is from 1988. And I think just last night, while I was working at an ungodly hour in the morning on work, I think I finally found the magic sweet spot for ABV for this blend. And it is lovely. It's about 30% 1988 Invergordon.
Yeah.
45% 1988 Tully Barden.
Ooh.
And then some like kind of little secret sauce in there. A couple, like 3% of Port Charlotte Sauternes.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just like the little seasoning on top. It's beautiful. So,
how long is
that's going to be my calibrator.
How long has that blend been? Since when did you start the blend?
I've been working on it for about 7 weeks now. So it's been resting in glass for a while, getting the right ratios. It's taken quite a few different little, micro blends of 10 milliliters at a time and adding it all up, and it's something special. I'm really enjoying it.
Nice. Cool. Cleon, what's in front of you?
Yeah, I'm on what I call my Christmas calibrator. It's the Thompson's Sherry Blend.
Oh.
I always forget
BSW?
the abbreviation, sorry. Yeah, it's the BSW age over 6 years. And I think this is the very first batch, which I believe is essentially a teaspoon Macallan. And goodness gracious, if every Macallan tasted like this, I would be a complete Macallan wanker, because it is delicious. It's so delicious. It's like if, that Italian drink Canotto was a whiskey. That like sort of orangey, oily, bitter flavor, and then just a little bit of cocoa dust and sugar, ginger snaps. Just a fantastic like Christmas start.
Nice.
That sounds great. Adam, what do we have in the glass?
Well, my warm up is definitely not Glen Beige. It's
I've got a Brora from 1976.
it's a whiskey sponge 20-year-old Craig Alecky that I've been devouring.
Barley juice.
I opened it like 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, and it's half done because I haven't been able to drink anything else.
Well done.
It's a single cask for Kensington Wine Market.
Nice.
In Alberta, in Calgary.
And very affordable.
I like that. It was in Calgary.
It's just
not in Toronto, Calgary.
Yeah. Well, like everything. But it's like, Ralphie always has the note barley sugar.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really knew what that meant until this is definitely barley sugar. And it's got like this sweet cereal quality. Not too much of the like Craig Alecky kind of meatiness that you would like. I get a lot in the 13-year-old. I'm really not getting any of that here, but it's delicious.
Yeah, sometime when I go to the UK, I'm going to get you guys some of these things like barley sugars and Werther's Originals and all that kind of crap, and bring them back and distribute them so you actually have the tasting note in your mouth.
Don't forget tablet, Mike. We all need to know what the word tablet is.
I'm just going to send you something weird and hard and tell you it's tablet.
Okay.
Well,
that sounded wrong, but move on.
Yeah.
And we're back.
Anyway.
Chuck, how are we doing?
Never better. Really good. Yep.
So what's the calibrated? What do you have in front of you?
I sort of did something a little bit like what Cleon and Gus did, sort of in combination. I picked something a little bit generic, but a little bit per seasonal. So it's Glenmorangie La Santa.
Oh.
Yeah, a little bit of sherry and a little bit of like Glen Beige.
A little Glen Beige.
Got some Christmas notes in there.
But a little bit of Christmas notes in there, but nothing too crazy. A nice calibrator, just a touch of sherry to kind of like, help steer the ship.
I think that's always the way we all think when we go to the whiskey cabinet or the whiskey shelves. I need something to steer the ship.
Speaking of which, what have you got, Rob?
I have with me a Loch Lomond. This is the 150th open anniversary bottle from 2022. I snagged this one at auction a while ago. It's just a wonderful representation of Loch Lomond, as I understand. Just malty, fruity goodness. It's just simple, but so good, but not quite simple, if you know what I mean.
It's looking like it's going to be a fallen soldier soon. Is there going to be a murder tonight?
There very well may be.
It's looking low.
It's on the heel. It's on the heel.
I don't know. Considering how many whiskeys we've got to get through this evening, it could be challenging to finish that off.
Or how long this podcast ends up being.
I was going to say challenge accepted. So we have our Secret Santa, where we have exchanged whiskeys amongst us. And there are whiskeys between Cleon and Angus from down in Straya, which I think is fantastic. I love that. Strayamite. We have whiskeys exchanged between Adam and Stewart. The Canadian.
Team Canada.
Yep. There we go.
Team A.
A. And say it, Stewart, say it. You know you wanted to say something right there.
Nope, not doing it.
Not doing it. Not taking the bait. And then there are whiskeys that have been exchanged among Mike, Chuck, and me. But to start us off, if you haven't already started doing your nosings of the whiskeys, Cleon and Angus, now's the time to start doing it. We're going to give you some cover for a little bit. And in this thought of the year-end episode, just some thoughts about what I have a question for everyone but Angus and Cleon. We'll get to them later. I want your best bottle that you bought in 2024 and the worst. He's thinking. Anyone?
Bottle that we. Wow, that's good. Well, I can offer something up for best. Well, I can give the other guys some air cover while they think of their answer.
There we go.
Certainly a candidate for best. I always bottle out one, pardon the pun. If anybody says what is the best, because again, it's going to depend on whether it's a Wednesday or a Saturday and what mood I'm in and all the rest. But definitely a contender. It's a bottle I bought a while ago in a little liquor store in the Hudson Valley, and I ended up buying about 3 of them over a period of time because I knew it was going to be good. It's the Kilkerran Cask Strength 8-year-old, the 2021 release, fully matured in sherry.
Ooh.
Doesn't actually say what sherry. Tastes a hell of a lot like it's Oloroso to me. And I know it was very well reviewed on Dramface previously. I think it was Dougie that reviewed it. Astonishingly good whiskey. It's one of those whiskeys that makes you sit up and your eyebrows shoot up your head and you start drooling as soon as you're drinking it. My tweet length note for it is always that it's like licking the floor of a mechanic's workshop in a really good way.
Mm-hmm.
It's dirty, it's rich, it's fruity, it's just absolutely fantastic. I was delighted that I had 2 other spare bottles when I opened the first one, and I will confess I've actually since then bought 3 more bottles at auction because that will be my lifetime supply of this whiskey, and I'm done with that now. That's just going to keep me going. I need a stash. It is so incredibly good. Kilkerran at its best in my view.
And when you say I'm done with it now, that means through 2024. Come January 25, we reset.
My intent is to make that last. Put it that way.
Fair enough. Is there one that sticks out for you, Mike? That's like, man, that was a huge swing and miss. Why did I ever spend the money on that bottle?
No, I would say my year has been blissfully free of that kind of experience.
Well done.
I've had that in the past, but not for a while. But I think it's because I tend to lean increasingly into a narrower range of whiskies. I buy less OBs, I buy more IBs or releases from distilleries that I know are going to be really interesting. Their cask strength or whatever it is. I think it's like a lot of us, I'm narrowing my focus because I want to buy stuff that I either know or believe I'm likely to really enjoy. So I think that's one of the reasons you make less mistakes. You're just not exploring quite so widely anymore because you've learned what your palate really is.
Well, I think Adam said it might have been the first episode. He said, I don't buy anything that I think it's going to be less than an 8. Is that correct?
For Scotch, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. Adam, for you, what's the best bottle you've purchased or at least opened in 24?
I've had a few good ones that I remember. I mean, this Craigellachie's up there. There was a sherry cask Benromic that a local whiskey bar here bottled. That was really good. 10-year-old first fill sherry single cask. And also that one that I gave you a sample of, Mike, the Knockdew.
Yes.
It was a 16-year-old refill, but it was like almost clear. It was so pale.
Yeah, totally.
You thought it was new make.
Practically, yeah. I was just seriously young. I was so convinced.
That was a big mind whatever of a whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I love sometimes when you're just wildly wrong on something. Because it just kind of refines your thinking. It says, yeah, I actually don't know as much as I maybe thought I did.
Well, there wasn't much cask influence in there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
As an additional wrinkle on the question about best, worst, whatever, also add in there, what's been the biggest surprise? Any surprises for you, Chuck?
Well, I was just kind of taking some notes. I was reflecting on the year, and I was thinking of it actually in 2 sort of separate strains. So things I've tried this year at tastings and things I've bought. So when I thought about the things I've tried at tastings, there's a clear standout, and it's Ardnamurchan 2024. Mike, that's so well made. It's excellent. And at $95 US, it's not that bad of a price. It's a little on the high end, but it's not extravagant, I guess. And it's really good, really, really, really beautiful whiskey there. And then the worst thing I tried at all this year, let me put it that way, was actually the same night, and it was a really surprise. I was prepared to be just blown away. And Mike, like you were talking about, this is something that's old, and you just never know what happens with age. This was in Adelphi, IB bottled Bunnahabhain from like 25 plus years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the weirdest whiskey by far I've ever had it. Yeah, it was something had taken a hard left at Albuquerque.
Wow.
It was like super farmy. It was super weird oak. That's the best way I can put it. It wasn't Bunnahabhain that we all kind of are familiar with in some way, like fruity or anything like that. It was like everything turned up to 11, just completely saturated, and just took me off guard. Wow. And then the things that I bought this year, I would say maybe a tie between Long Row Heavily Peated. That was my first, and that's just delicious. Or maybe that 3-chamber rye from Leopold Brothers, because it was so surprisingly good. I mean, I just never had a good relationship with rye before that one.
And now the door is open to you, and you're going to walk through with amazement and wonder.
Yeah. And maybe the weirdest one that I bought this year, now caveat to say that I still like it. It just doesn't rank very highly because it's 40% ABV, and it has that cabbage note. And I think you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Yeah. St. George Spirits from Alameda, California. It's good, but it isn't wonderful.
Now you're talking about the
standard,
not the baller.
Right. Yeah.
Because the baller, man, that is stewed cabbage.
Straight up cabbage.
Oh my God. And it's wow. You just, I really don't know what to say about it.
I kind of think of these as maybe just like high distillate flavors. They're like, and maybe Angus, you can kind of steer me right, but that's what it reminds me of, is that there's not a lot of oak to St. George. And so you're left with kind of like just a lot of what I think of as distillate flavor.
Is this is the one you're saying has a cabbagey?
Yeah.
Quality? Yeah. Interesting. There are a couple of things. I take it it's also a relatively young spirit.
Yeah, I'm sure it's 3 years old, something like that. I have to look. It's non-age statement. It's from California,
right?
Yeah.
So there's definitely a few polysulfides that if you don't have adequate oak interaction in the early years, you don't get the combined sorption / volatilization aspects out of the cask and sticking to the inner layer of the char layer, assuming it's a charred cask.
Yeah.
They can be quite cabbagey, that sort of DMS, DMDS, DMTS, some of the relatively simple McCaptons, and a lot of those tend to age out.
Oh man, I'll tell you, I had been looking for that. I'd seen it on a number of different sites and whatever, in different publications, and I found it when I did my little run to South Carolina a month or so ago. I'm like, oh my God, there's the bottle. You can't mistake it. It's like some samurai on the bottle, and it's
got a cool design to that label. Yep.
I uncorked it, poured it, put it to the nose, and recoiled quite a bit. But yeah, when the nose matches the palate, and the palate tells you cabbage, it's an interesting profile. But anyway,
yeah.
I got a question: is it just cabbage, or is it cabbage with like, is it like sauerkraut? Is it?
No,
it's meat in it. Is it?
I think it's kind of like boiled cabbage.
Just boiled,
just cabbage, nothing else. No pepper,
it's
nothing.
It's cabbage. It's vegetal. There's no spice in it. Well, not to my recollection, or at least if there is, it's overpowered by the vegetal cabbage.
Yeah.
Which,
if you like it.
I was just going to say, my wife's in real estate, and she says, this house may be the worst thing ever, but all you need is one buyer. That's it.
Yeah.
There's got someone out there who loves this stuff, and that's great. And maybe it'll open up into more cabbage. I don't know, but we'll see about that goes.
Yep.
That was your least good experience, are you saying? Or
yeah, although like I said, it has grown on me. it's at least the one that I have. The Baller I can't quite attest to fully yet. I've only had a small sample of it, but I got the same cabbage note off of it. Yeah, but the standard single malt from St. George is the one I'm thinking of. Yeah.
So Cleon and Gus, I know you guys have exchanged whiskey, and I'm looking at Cleon, and there's something going on.
Sorry, I'm just having a religious experience diving into one of the samples that Gus sent me. Wow. This is one of the most delicious Longrows I've ever had, Gus. I don't know, is it just the standard Longrow 21? Do you even remember sending this to me? It was a Longrow 21, but it might be some like single cask thing, because I don't think this is the standard one.
Yeah.
All right, well, hold on for the listeners out there. When we talk about a blind tasting, there's been a little bit of a glitch down south of the equator for this one. If you guys could explain, that'd be great.
Sorry, I've been terribly preoccupied and generally disorganized. I'm sorry. So Cleon's got some whiskey, but it ain't blind.
I'm gonna be pissed blind if it's this good. It's delicious. It is like lapsang souchong tea, herbs, like some nice exotic Southeast Asian fruits, like Longrow, and maybe even Springbank, but Longrow in particular, when it gets this big amount of age, just becomes so heavenly. Oh my god, I'm loving this.
Does it taste quite well? Does it feel quite soft on the palate? Like it might be around 40%. Still like viscous and quite full, but not that higher alcohol content.
No, not higher. Yeah, I would gather that it's around the mid 40s, maybe. Like it's not weak or thin, but it's definitely light, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, there's a decent chance that's the single cask Longrow bottling that I got for my club a while ago. I think it was a single cask bottling for Poland and Australia and maybe New Zealand. A very weird collection of countries.
Nah, it's absolutely fantastic, man. I'm loving this. It's blown. So my other dram was a Bamor 15 Fagile, and this has blown it out of the water.
So Cleon, when you talk about the Bamor, you enjoyed that Bamor Fagile?
Yeah, it's good. It's a very classic Bamor. It's that, sort of sushi fish, sort of maritime flavor with that floral peat. Like, again, anytime I nose a Bamor that isn't too sherry influenced, I'm immediately taken to like some Japanese man sushi bar. It's just like delicate, like seafood flavor. And then salt. Sorry, Gus, I gotta say it. It is salty to me. And then there's some nice like caramels and stuff that comes from the bourbon cask as well, I'd say, or the oak itself. It's really good. But then when you get a 21-year-old Longrow single cask, it's hard to go back.
And next in your lineup is going to be a non-age statement Glenmurray at 40%.
No. It's this, I believe, is a Lecheg 17, if you remember whatever that was, Gus.
Yeah, that's probably one of the single malts of Scotland bottlings, I think. So is it quite pale for 17?
It's really pale. And look, I'm getting that petrochemical sort of, Lecheg sort of peat smoke, but it's so sweet on the finish. Oh, it's just like lemon candy and actually it's like a nice lemon tart with the meringue at the finish. Oh, that's good. That's good too, actually.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed those things.
Not a blind tasting, but I'm enjoying my whiskey.
Just don't read the labels.
Rounded off. Still definitely got, for me, it's a real fishy sort of thing that I get out of Lecheg, very Pyridini. And I found out a while ago, they take their tails cuts at like 58%, whereas I think the lowest tails cut on Isla is circa 60-61%. So
I was going to say 61, yeah.
Yeah, incredibly late tails cuts. In fact, I believe it's the same ABV tails cut that Longrow makes, and I mix up Longrow and Lecheg, depending on the bottlings, in blind tastings all the time, because I get this yeasty, fishy thing out of both of them, and I am convinced it's that cut section they take.
I'd say Gus, Lecheg and Longrow are more alike than Lecheg and any other Isla like peat profile. So that makes a lot of sense, actually. We were talking about this on our last episode. We were talking about peat profiles and all of that. So it's nice to have someone explain the science.
So, Gus, how many whiskeys do you have in front of you from Cleon?
Just 6. I'm only working later. It's fine.
Are they all blind too?
Yeah.
Oh, Cleon, you play hard.
What are you starting off with, Gus? Are you going to do it in numerical order?
More or less, I've nosed all of them. Whenever I do bigger blind tasting things, I always nose back and forth as much as possible, especially if I've got a reference. So the Glenfiddich's quite handy for that. And there's definitely a couple I'll be saving until later, just based off the nose profile. 5 and 6 definitely have quite a bit more character to them. I've not even tasted number 3, but just based off the nose, and a little bit with number 4 as well. Are we looking at a Cadenhead's bottling?
No, not a Cat and Heads, but I'd say in the same family of IBs, for sure.
It's got that knackered cask, very distillate driven, still like big on the barley malt sort of side of things with very, very little cask interaction. So it's got a almost prototypical Cadenhead sort of profile to it for me.
Spot on. They're both refill bourbon. Can I ask, number 4, do you have a distillery in mind?
Number 4, I have not nosed it in a while. Give me a sec. No, but it's got a bit of a perfumey, musk lolly sweetness sort of thing going on to it. I don't know if I strongly identify that with any particular distillery. I've been drinking a lot of Isla and Campbelltown for a long time, so my reference library is kind of...
Isla. It's very close to Isla, so it's very close to what you're familiar with, but it's definitely something I don't think you would be visiting very much, Gus. Nor would any of us, really, for that matter.
Okay.
But it's close
No.
to Isla.
I mean,
there's only a handful that are close to Isla,
Yeah.
and only a handful you would rarely go visit. Does it start with a J?
And end in an A.
Can I buy a letter?
That's with the J.
Does it rhyme with Jura?
It does rhyme with Jura.
Jura, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was not getting that much peat out of it, but I do occasionally suffer from peat blight.
It's so much lighter. Like, I feel like it's even lighter than, the peat that you get on a Kilkerran 12, I find, with that Jura. But yeah, it's a Chorlton whiskey, independently bottled Jura. I believe 15 years old. Let me fact check. But yeah, have a taste. Let me know what you think.
I've had 2 Jura in my life, and they have both been trash OBs.
Yeah, that's it. I've not had an IB Jura, but everybody says the IB Jura opens up a completely different world on a really interesting spirit.
Right.
And I would say the OB Jura, but only the distillery exclusive.
Right.
That's where they let their good stuff go.
So essentially, Jura that hasn't been castrated for its skin and its insides.
Oh, well, it's not gone through the full kind of mass market
It hasn't been eviscerated.
treatment.
Now, can I ask, number 5, big yeasty profile on it, and I say that very lovingly. Really enjoy this sort of yeasty profile, some good fruitiness in there as well. Are we in? I think I might know what it is, but I'm gonna cast a wider net first, and then try and shimmy down.
I think you can call this. Let's do it.
Look, off the top, I'm thinking Kilkerran, either the 12 or the 16, but generally speaking, are we in either Campbelltown or Orkney?
This dude is way too good. Yep, it is let's just say, a slightly bougier cousin to the Kilkerran 16. Slightly older.
A bougier? Really?
It does give a sense of age. I haven't tasted this yet. This is only off the nose, so I might just go in for a quick taste.
I have never heard the phrase a bougier cousin than Kilkerran.
Yeah, 16-year-old.
Yeah, what's that?
Well, I guess we're going to find out pretty quickly.
Oh, that's delicious. What's going on with the casking here?
It is all bourbon, though other iterations of this particular bottle are not always all bourbon.
Cool. I ask because usually, well, I'm given to understand most of their core stuff. There's a sort of standard balance between bourbon, sherry in varying ratios, and sometimes a little rum cask. And I'm not finding that sherry there, so that's reassuring. What am I drinking?
You're drinking a Springbank 18 all bourbon.
Wow.
Ooh.
Okay, so I was off on the distillery, but that does make a lot of sense. I've never had an 18 all bourbon.
Yeah, so I reckon on a blind I would pick Kilkerran 16. However, I've had another bottle of an all bourbon Springbank 18 a few years ago. It was my first Springbank 18. And as soon as this came out, I'm like, yep, I'm going to put my net out there to try and get it. And it's fantastic because I've had the other ones which are a little bit more sherried. But like you said, Gus, like I just love that sort of more distillate forward, yeasty, bourbony notes.
I will say it's a bit cleaner than I usually get from Springbank, and I guess that's just the age. I've not had all that many older Springbanks, and the only other 18s I've ever had have either been all sherry or mostly sherry, and a lot of them have been very dirty from the cask rather than the distillate. But this is a significantly softened Springbank profile if you were to compare it to, say, one of the 12 cask strength bottlings, all bourbon. Like there's a big difference here. Thank you for that.
Which year is that from, Cleon?
It's just from, I think, a few maybe months or weeks ago. I opened it very recently, so it's honestly just at its shoulder in my house. But I'm loving it, loving it.
And when was it released? Was it this year's or
This year? So it's the most recent Springbank 18.
You know, have you guys always? I mean, I listen to Gus and how he just picks this thing apart and is like spot on about stuff. It's remarkable to me. I have not had the opportunity to do a lot of blind tastings. I mean, I'm the one who started my whiskey club with fellow noobs from Connecticut and around, but we never really did a lot of blind stuff. Have you guys done? I mean, Mike, I think you've done quite a bit.
Yeah, I've done a lot with the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, and I have other friends who tend to host them.
Right.
And I've hosted some myself.
I definitely get anxiety with blind tastings. Like, I'm just like, I want to get it right. I'm so desperate.
Yeah.
Right? But then there's that complete mystery and almost that naked experience of tasting a whiskey and not kind of approaching it with a preconceived notion. Like even Gus before, he was like, whoa, this is cleaner than what I'd
Right.
expect from a Springbank, right? And I think even when I opened it, I was expecting a certain profile. And yeah, sometimes it can be surprising. But if you don't have that preconceived notion, you are just purely breaking down those flavors and notes.
That's what I love about it. And the fact that you are almost always going to be wrong in at least some respects. You know, if you start to have that conversation about, okay, what's the maturation on this? What kind of barrel has this been sitting in? All barrels. Is there more than one finish? Is there more than one maturation? What's the likely age? What do you think the ABV is? And then, you know, you zero in on a wild ass guess on the distillery. But as you do more of it, you do actually start to recognize stuff. Right. And I mean, having done a lot of SNWS stuff, I realize there are certain distilleries I find it easier to spot now. I'll often get a Dalhuan or an Ardmore or a Cowela, and you know, you start to notice the differences after a while. I think it becomes muscle memory. You just practice. It's like anything else.
Right.
My biggest challenge is sometimes I haven't had an OB in quite a long time. Right. So I've had a lot of IBs. So I'm kind of, on the periphery. But if somebody hands me a blind something and it's like a core range, Glenfiddich 12, I'll be like, oh man, I can't remember the last time I had one. And if I did have one, it was at a pub in a tumbler glass and that was it. Right. And it's actually interesting on the topic of blinds because this is very timely. So this started last year, but a good friend group, we started an advent calendar, but they're all blind. So we each buy a random bottle and we each share a 2-ounce sample with each other. And we do them. Last year was every other day. And that was fun blind. So I think I got close on 2 of the 12, which was not bad.
That's good.
Yeah. And this year, and we're actually exchanging samples tonight after this podcast. We each got 2 bottles. One is a Scotch whiskey and one is a world whiskey.
Ooh.
So we're going to have 2 ounces every night in the month of December. One is a Scotch, one is a World Whiskey. And I'm going to try and guess those ones. But man, that's going to be tough because the World
That's gonna
Whiskey
be tough.
category,
really
there's a
big.
lot in there.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Quite big.
Yeah.
That's such a cool idea. Like, so how many people are involved in that?
12 people. And 2 bottles each, minimum. In this case, or this year, we at least did a minimum $80 a bottle buy-in. We each got the 2-ounce little Boston Round sample bottles and share them around. And we're going to play poker tonight and start tasting on Sunday, whatever December 1st is.
That's great.
So, is there any parameter that, like a boundary, you can't do? You have to have at least 46% or 40% or
anything as long as it meets the price criteria.
Okay. Cleon, I have a question for you.
Yeah, baby.
You send us these great pictures of when you're at the whiskey bars down in Melbourne and other places, whatever.
It's Melbourne, Rob.
What's that?
Melbourne.
Beg your pardon. Down in Australia.
I love how Adam's the
There
one.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Canadian corrects on the Australian pronunciation.
One time I texted Cleon, but I tried to text him in an Australian accent, and he was like, "What is this?"
Adam was simultaneously having a stroke and also becoming like homeless. I had no idea what in the world he was going on about.
And Cleon's a speech therapist, so I guess he doesn't.
So, I mean, having those whiskey bars to me is so absolutely out of the ordinary because even before I came to North Carolina, even in Connecticut, we didn't have any. And I see these bars that are just stocked, in your pictures with all the stuff. When you're at the whiskey bars, do you speak to the person behind the bar, say, hey, can you give me a flight and don't tell me what it is, and you do your own blind?
I've done that once, Rob, and I would only do something like that at a bar that you trust and a bar that kind of knows what you vibe with. I don't think it's one where you just walk in and you go, yeah, let's just have whatever you recommend. Because, look, again, I'm not being skeptical, but I would say most bartenders will be like, well, I don't know what they like. I'm not going to get my top range stuff, right? Or stuff that's really unique, really interesting. But if you have a good relationship with your particular bartender who knows the kind of things that you like, then they're going to pour some good shit out for you.
Not just a Glen Beige 12 and another Glen Beige 12 and another Glen Beige 12.
What I usually do is I just say, hey man, I want to start off with something a bit floral. I want to go with something waxy. Take me to Isla. Give me something funky. And that they usually know what to do. Or
Right.
I'm like, hey, I want like some really crazy, independently bottled stuff. And they absolutely do know their stuff. So I think a profile is usually the best way to order. But if you walk in and you're like, yep, I want a Bunna or I want an Octomore or whatever it is, that's, a great way to do it as well. But most of the time, I tend to go to a bar because I want to have, it's like going to a carnival. I just want to try different things. I want to be surprised. I want to give things that I don't usually do a bit of a go. And, don't want to just drink the same old stuff that I have at home as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the funny thing, isn't it? You go out and we all have a decent amount of whiskey at home and it's whiskey we like. We're buying from an informed perspective. So I often think, I'll go up and I'm going to have a drink. I'm going to have a whiskey. And I think, well, wait a minute. Am I going to get a better whiskey than I'm going to get for free at home? So no, probably not. More often than not, you lean in and say, fuck it, I'll just have a really good cocktail.
Right. Now, where you are, Mike, in New York City, same opportunities. I think the Brandy Library was one.
There are some great places here. There's the Brandy Library. There's 2 Flatiron rooms, one of which used to be called Fine and Rare, which is deeply confusing. Library of Distilled Spirits. Actually, Adam and I met at Francis Tavern downtown, one of the oldest kind of bars that there is in New York, and they actually have a really good whiskey room there. There are a bunch of good places if you know where to look. But again, I agree with Cleon. I mean, the more specific you are when you're asking for something, short of saying, I want that particular whiskey or that particular bottle, the more specific you are, the better you are likely to do in terms of what somebody serves you up. You know, you get somewhere like Copper and Oak here in New York on the Lower East Side on Allen Street. It's tiny little whiskey bar. Really, really good. The guy there, Tomo, who owns and runs the place, is excellent. And that actually, he recently bought it out from the Brandy Library. It was their other place. You're going to get really good service, but you have to give them something to work with. You know, you have to tell them what you like. You have to give them a flavor profile at the very, very least, or some kind of reference. And even then it can go wrong. If you go in and you say, okay, I want something that is essentially Sean Connery as James Bond, which is actually a pretty good guide. You know, it's going to be ballsy, slightly aggressive, assertive, and all of that kind of stuff. Maybe a little dangerous, and probably going to sleep with your girlfriend. But that's not a bad tasting note. But you don't know, if you don't know the barman or bar person, then you don't know how they're going to respond to that. And it's like asking for a movie recommendation until you know who you're talking to. It's a kind of a dangerous thing to do. And you have to accept that you might get something that you just think is crap.
Right.
Fair enough.
One of the few contexts I'd say where you can kind of flout your, what you know. Like, not to be an asshole about it, but, if you're like, hey, look, I really like this kind of stuff. I like stuff in worm tubs. I like bottles like Whiskey Agency or Samaroli or whatever. Then they're like, okay, cool. I can prepare that for you, because they don't know. You're a completely new person to them. And obviously someone's just coming in wanting a very classic whiskey, something like a Glenmurray or like a Glenfiddich, and that's fine. But you need to give them the information that you want to reach high on that shelf for a certain thing as well.
Yeah, you've got to give them something to work with. Also, frankly, in that exchange, you learn a lot about the bar and the people. Because if you say, look, I love stuff that comes out of worm tubs, a lot of distilleries that use worm tubs, I really like. And if they look at you with a blank stare because they don't know what a worm tub is, you're learning something about that. And that's perfectly reasonable. A lot of people don't.
Right.
But you're learning something about the establishment, you're learning something about the people, and you're learning something about what you need to give them for them to be able to do their best job for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if that's the response, but you still want that kind of stuff, just go, hey, what are the Kregelikis that you have in stock?
Exactly.
Or tell them. They can just find that on the shelf, and then you can pick what you want.
Yeah, or you tell them what worm tubs typically, lead to in a whiskey.
Right.
You just take a different tack. It's a collaboration when you do that kind of thing.
Any other whiskeys down in Australia that need to be fussed out?
Gus, I'm dying to hear what you think of number 6, my dude. I need you to break this.
I've been watching Angus, nose and taste some things. I'm watching his face, and there's some interesting things coming, I think.
Is it Tasmanian?
I'll admit, I'm very out of practice. I used to do a lot of sensory stuff, and I still do a bit, but this year's been focusing a lot more on production and like the academia of production, and sort of a bit more textbook work and less tasting. So I'm a little bit rusty. I've done a fair amount in years previous, so this is interesting and really good to get back on the horse in a sense. But I'm also feeling a little bit lost with a couple of things. I'm interested to look at number 6, but I also know that as soon as I taste it, there's almost going to be no point returning to any of the other whiskies here, bar maybe the Springbank. So just based on nose, it's a big whack of smoke. It's quite a savoury style. It's not a million miles away from. I've had a couple of Australian whiskies that have used either like red gum or some other kind of wood smoke as opposed to peat smoke. I don't know that that's necessarily the direction we're going in, but it's just got that kind of...
Not at all. No, not remotely Australian. But let me just give you this clue. It is a mix of my favourite distillery and one of your favourite distilleries, though for you, I would not necessarily go down whiskey distilleries. So what would you think it is?
Oh my god!
Okay, well that's wild.
Wow.
I was already thinking somewhere in that Lagavulin, Kalila, Bunnahabhain profile, because for me, their peat smoke profile is that much more savoury sort of thing, which is where I was going with the wood smoke, and sometimes almost like a coniferous terpenic sort of aspect to it that you can get out of some gum smokes. But yeah, again, it's ubiquitous in those three distilleries in certain bottlings anyway. One of my favorite distilleries, but not a whiskey distillery, is Terrifying. I can only imagine you talking about a rum distillery.
Oh yeah, baby.
Which kind of makes sense because there is. Initially, I thought it was a youth thing, but there is a slightly varnishy acetone kind of quality that would indicate some like Hogo high ester ethyl acetate kind of action going on. Tell me this hasn't been in a Hamden cask, has it?
Has indeed. Yeah.
Oh my
Ooh.
god!
Wow.
Which one? Come on, Angus. Which one? Which cask?
It is a Bunnahabhain, a heavily peated Bunnahabhain that has been aged in an ex-Hamden estate cask. This is bottled for Malt, Grain and Cane, which is an Asian independent bottler. And it's just crazy, crazy stuff. It's like taking this funky, intensely ester like rum cask and then putting a heavily peated Bunna spirit in it, and it just melds together into an absolute flavor bomb for me.
I do think maybe that terpenic aspect is being sort of synergized a bit with some of those high ester aspects. This was a weird one to nose off the bat. I assumed it was a Bunna just because it's you providing stuff.
Bunna boy.
Profile matches.
Angus, I think I speak for everyone here that we're very disappointed that you didn't name the person who actually bottled the spirit.
Yeah, it's kind of lame. Yeah. Angus, do you like it?
Well, I haven't tasted it yet, and I probably won't until the very end because I'm still curious about a couple of these other things, and that is unrecoverable. You need, at least a few hours and a good curry to try and come anywhere back from something like that.
You can't go back from a high ester whiskey, and you can't go back from a heavily peated whiskey. So when the two are combined, you are sucked into a black hole, essentially.
You are basically screwed.
That's right. So while Gus is trying to recalibrate, Adam and Stuart, let's hear some of the things that you guys have been. I've been watching you guys' nose, and some of the faces that you've kind of screwed up your face and looking at when you've done it have been just gold. Adam, what have you provided? Well, I'm not going to ask what it is. Stuart.
Well, I wanted to go the other way first because I'm too excited.
Okay, so what I've got, or you want me to ask
what you gave me?
Okay. So on the side, we've been messaging back and forth, just some questions that we asked each other to try and pick out the blinds. So we each gave each other 3 blind samples, 1, 2, and 3. So I gave the 3 following clues: name or identify which one of the 3 is a world whiskey, which one of the 3 is a Scotch whiskey, and which one is a blended whiskey.
Ooh, interesting.
And then, for extra bonus points, if Adam is feeling confident on this fine evening, is if you could an extra half a point if you could identify the distillery or whiskey maker, and then the expression would be another half a point. So 6 points up for grabs. And then kind of at the very end, also rank the 3 samples most to least favorite. So for background, they're all peated as well.
Yeah, that's kind of screwing me up a bit. They're all peated.
Can't imagine that Stuart did anything other than with the intention of screwing you up.
Yeah, when I first nosed number 2, I didn't think it was peated compared to number 1 and number 3, but then after closer inspection, it is. When you say, so there's a world whiskey, a Scotch, and a blend. Does that mean there's only one Scotch whiskey?
Yes. Just had to consult my little cheat sheet.
Okay. Well, the first one is amazing. It's very dark fruit, juicy. There's cinnamon. I'm getting some licorice notes and stuff like that. And I really think it's. I haven't had one yet, but I really think it's one of your Bodega Millstones.
Can I just say, Millstone is becoming to Stu what Bunnahabhain is to me. You are the Millstone
pretty much,
man, my dear.
So I'm gonna say that number 1 is the world whiskey.
Okay.
Number 3, I don't know if any of you guys get this, but sometimes when some Islay whiskeys, like especially like Colonials, on the nose, I kind of get this weird like popcorn thing, but I don't know if it's like, it's not even like it smells like popcorn. It's just like kind of like some sort of essence of popcorn. I don't know. I don't know how to describe
Adam,
it.
those bourbon, ex-bourbon, like a young ex-bourbon Colonials, maybe more first fill bourbon. I tend to get that as well.
Yeah, the buttery sort of.
I'm just going to ask.
Yeah,
buttery, or is it the salt? Like salty popcorn is different,
than buttery. Yeah, like movie butter popcorn kind of stuff.
I think it's just like hot corn.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense.
I'm following you.
I think this one number 3 might be an Islay, might be a Colonials or something like that. So I'm gonna go with that's the Scotch. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is very floral and also very sweet. I'm kind of lost on this one, actually. I think this is probably the blended one.
You're 3 for 3.
He's
Really?
the man.
You went
That's
3
impressive.
for 3.
Whoa! Golf clap for you.
Nice.
Yay, Canada.
So you got the world, the Scotch, and the blend right. Do you want to wait? Do you want to go for bonus points now?
Yeah, I'm gonna say number 1 is the Millstone,
Okay.
a sherry cask Millstone.
That is a 4-year-old, 100-year-old sherry bodega cask, peated Millstone. Canada
Nice.
exclusive, 52%. Oh, it's so good.
And I've never had a Millstone single malt before. This is just from hearing Stuart talk about
I
it.
think you played the player.
Yeah.
You guys clearly share a palate.
Yeah.
And then I'll go with number.
Canadians just live in a hive mind. Like it's just. The
I'll say number 3 is a Colonials.
Ardbeg Ugadal.
Wow.
Ooh.
I guessed Islay, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't think of toilet mint on fire?
In a swimming pool with no chlorine.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
a callback, Rob. That's a callback.
Nobody listening to this is going to get that reference.
It's a good thing, listeners. You need to go back and listen to us all.
So what's
Hotels
number 2?
1?
What's the blend?
I don't know. I'm lost here.
But it's peated, right?
Yeah, it's peated, but it seems to be less peated than the others. Well, I mean, I guess is the Millstone heavily peated?
They use 50 ppm malt.
So that's like roughly same as Ardbeg.
Yeah, it's mainland peat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not Scotch. So it's.
Well, no, you already got the world whiskey, so this is just a blended whiskey.
This could be Scotch.
But it's
You're
Scotch.
right.
Oh, but you said it wasn't Scotch.
I'm just looking at it right now. It is all Scotch. So it is a blended malt Scotch whiskey.
I have to give up on this one. I have no idea.
Yeah, you weren't gonna get it. I sent you a big old curveball. This is one of my. This is one of the ones that I've blended together.
Yeah, I knew it.
Oh, dear Lord.
So nice. It's
That's
expertly
exactly what I would
blended.
have done.
Oh, that's just cruel.
You know what?
Have you
Maybe I
really
shouldn't have
blended?
told him that because now I'm gonna ask him to rank him most favorite to least favorite. And now we're gonna see which one does he put? Where does he
Yeah,
rank
you
mine?
gave it away too soon, dude.
Oh yeah,
I
you should have got me to rank them before
Yeah.
you unveiled them.
Never thought of that. I screwed my own pooch there.
I have to say, I think in order of the bottle numbers, the Millstone is my favorite by far. It's really good.
It's something else. That one
And
is something
then-
else.
Yeah, and then Stuart Blend number 2, and then the Ardbeg number 3.
Yeah, and Stuart Blend number 2 is got inch fad, so peated Loch Lomond.
Mm-hmm.
It's got Ardnamurchan cask strength in it.
Ooh.
It is a Kalila North Star Supersonic Sherry blend. It's got a smidge of Ardbeg Ugadal in it as well. It has a 13% is Octomore 11.1. Around 10% is a Glen Scotia Double Cask PX. And the little bit that actually tied everything together was 9.6% of it was a unpeated Ardmore. So an Ardlair in bourbon.
Was that the one that I had too? That was like
Yeah.
the weird cheesy art layer.
Yeah, or like I called it like Greek yogurt. Yeah, it was super funky.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow. It's nice. What's the ABV on that blend?
54%.
Nice.
So it's actually
Very
pretty close
nice.
to the Ugadal.
Right.
Yeah. And what's the millstone?
52, I think.
So they're all I did think they tasted all. That's my sweet spot, low 50s is Adam's flavor zone.
I'm similar with mid 50s, but for me, mid 50s goes from like 52 to 59.
I think a future podcast episode, I think I just saw a little, if you did something, I could do something too. Mike just held up his infinity bottle and was
This is
like
my-
taunting Stewart saying, "Oh, you want to blend? I'll blend with you."
Yeah, this is my unpeated infinity bottle. I have a peated one as well.
Well, I will say there's a difference between an infinity bottle and a blending with a purpose.
For sure, absolutely.
True. Absolutely. Gus, other ones that Cleon has sent you that you haven't talked about yet. How many? You did 6. You did 1 and 2, I think.
Well, we've done the reveals on 4, 5, and 6.
4, 5,
So
and 6.
4 was the Jura, 5 was the Springbank 18, and 6 was the Buna out of Hampden Cask. I've gone back and looking at 1, 2, and 3, comparing with Glenfiddich. I still think 3 is really that Cadenhead circa like I think 2012 to 2018, 2019 era of dumpy bottlings. They small batch cask strength things. They're usually 3 or 4 casks a piece from whichever distillery. Very knackered wood. He said it's not that series of bottling, but it's for anyone who's had any of those whiskies, it's that very, very tired oak, raw, bordering on under-matured spirit. But depending on which distillery it is, sometimes that gives you access to some really cool distillate sort of characteristics. I could be just completely missing some stuff here, but I'm kind of leaning a little bit more towards the Glenbeige end of the spectrum as far as distillery here. But when they're so, again, borderline under-matured here, sometimes it's hard to pick out aspects of distillery characteristic because you're still getting some of that new make that's speaking a bit louder than the distillery components. 1, I've got a hunch about, but I've got to ask him, and 2, I am vacillating all over the place. So he's thrown a few curveballs here.
Right.
I basically don't know. Borderline under-matured style of like minimal cask influence here, and I'm struggling to pick out much in the way of distillate characteristics. So are we kind of in a Glenbeige sort of territory, or am I missing things here? What's going on?
Sort of. It's a Bunnahabhain actually, but it's it's a Bunnahabhain that you never often see, which is unpeated refill bourbon, really distillate.
I hate to say this, man. I've not had that many unpeated Bunas, but the unpeated Bunas I have had have fallen in my Glenbeige category historically.
Absolutely
And
fair.
Stewart is nodding very vociferously. Yes, yes.
Their peated stuff, amazing. They're unpeated. Pick any spot in the in Speyside and just
Yeah, and I think that's why they're so cask focused as well for their unpeated stuff, right? Because it's like this is the style, this is the sort of profile that you want to go for. I just thought, let me just pick the 2 most polar opposite Bunnahabhains in my collection and send them to you.
Well done.
Number 2. I'm getting an interesting kind of weight on the nose. It's a little bit fatty, a little bit waxy. I'm not erring all the way to Clynelish because I don't think I'm picking up on the sort of fruit ester characteristic that I would expect out of that. I mean, IB bottling's very variable, but I think I'm maybe hovering somewhere from the nose at least around like a Ben Rinus or maybe Daluan level of distillate interest.
I think, Gus, you have given like such a great compliment to this, because I think for this whiskey to be in this particular range of styles at the age it's at and where it's at, this is an Ardnamurchan 10. So the fact that this Ardnamurchan 10 is now getting all of those old school distillery vibes just goes to show the shit that they're doing right.
I have found I've seen other bottlings of their stuff, but nothing like this. The maturity and balance on this is so much more.
Is this the official Ardnamurchan 10 release, or was this the festival bottling?
Yeah, this is AD10, the 10-year-old.
This is fascinating because it starts out in bourbon casks and then they move it into Paul Noir barriques. And I've got this, and it's a fantastic dram. It's very different from a lot of what you expect from Ardnamurchan. It's really kind of exciting if you're actually into Ardnamurchan and you're thinking about where they're heading.
Yeah.
It's a great dram.
I was so curious, Gus, as to whether the Paul Lenoir influence would be something that you'd liked or disliked, because I know that when the wine takes over, it's tends to be a problem. But it seems good.
It's pretty chilled here. I was on, so the nose and the palate are a little bit disjoint in character for me. I get more of those characteristics I was talking about, a la Ben Renner Ewan on the nose, and then on the palate, it's a little bit more linear with a bit more cask influence in there. I was going to ask if it was majority bourbon, but maybe a little bit of like some refill sherry or something else refill in that wine category, but it's quite subtle. Like the blending on this, the élevage, if you will, on the management of the casks, this has been really well put together, and how promising for Ardnamurchan. I mean, good on them.
Oh, yeah.
All right, lastly, number one, I have gone all over with this. There's a really cool mustiness, especially on the nose. Comes through a little bit in retronasal as well, but it's kind of that old book, and I say this not pejoratively at all, but old person smell, like old person skin. That
Bro, this is so funny you say this. Keep talking because I'm going to get the bottle.
Oh, okay. I feel like this is almost like an old blend, or like a old bottling of something maybe circa 80s, 90s era. But I'm very happy to be wrong.
You are 1,000,000% correct. This is a
oh my gosh,
bottling
Wow.
of a Glenmurray that I got on auction. It's a 16-year-old. I've got a whole 1 liter of this bad boy.
It's great.
Yeah, so curious to hear what you said about it, because the cork disintegrated into it. I think I sent you guys a photo of the damage. But I enjoyed it, and I thought, I wonder what Gus thinks about this.
So I guessed 80s, 90s. How old is the bottling, and when was it distilled?
Okay, so I believe it was bottled in 96, maybe, and it's a 16-year-old. So it would have been bottled just prior to 1980, or distilled, prior to 1980. So
So this is bang on with all of my expectations. It's got a little bit of that, not old school distillate, but like mid-old era distillation style to it, and it's absolutely got some of that gorgeous musty OBE in there. It's not taken over. It's like working with the cask elements that are in there and a little bit of the distillate fruitiness. I'm really quite enjoying this. I found it difficult to nail down because I couldn't get a heap of like straight distillery characteristic out of it. It's almost all tertiary, the age of bottling and turning cask, but I'm really enjoying this.
This is really encouraging. I've seen these at auction and I've kind of held off them.
Do it, Mike. I got this for 150 AUD for a liter, like 150, 160 AUD in total. Like that's a steal for that.
Sweet.
Gus, you never cease to amaze me with just the knowledge, the breadth. I'm just sitting here speechless.
I've only got half a liver, so it doesn't come for free.
That's fair enough.
And who knows what's going on with the brain cells?
Brain cells overrated.
Yeah, we have lots of them.
Again, Gus, I mean, just brain cells are overrated, but the manner with which you go about nosing a glass and being able to describe stuff is just I am in awe. Just
Stunning.
Until you-
Have you tasted the ex Hamden Bunna yet, Gus? Do it. I reckon just go for it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
now's the
yeah,
time.
okay, why not?
He's thinking.
Yeah.
The look on his face is just beauty.
Yeah, I mean,
You're
even now knowing what it is, I just return to my earlier comments about some of those red gum smoked things. There's just this real herbal, terpenic, sappy sort of quality to it, which is just fucking fantastic. The ester profile is much more subdued compared to the peat profile, which is great. I mean, I want it to taste like a whiskey. It's much more of an accent than anything else. And I know a lot of people really want nose and palate to have some degree of alignment to feel like the whiskey's not disjoint. But I really love it when there's some variation and some complexity between the nose and the palate, because it just goes to show the slew of different volatiles that are on display and how they behave, orthonasally, retronasally, at different dilutions in your mouth, at different temperatures, the kinetics of it all. It's just, yeah, I like a whiskey to do as many different things for me as possible. They need to be an all-rounder, and that's great.
I saw Stuart with your hand up going like, yes, exactly.
Well, I don't need like exact alignment, but I don't want curveballs, because if I really like the nose and I want to sit there and nose it all night and then I take a sip and I just want to kind of frankly pour it in a highball, that's a problem. But it needs to have a certain degree of quality between the two, which usually aligns with similarities between the nose and the palate, usually.
Going off Gus's breakdown, though, you know how like old school kings had their food tasters who would taste like for poison and stuff, and I want Gus to be like my shadow taster. I'm like, I like it, but I don't know why I like it, and then Gus just breaks it down, and I'm like, yeah, that everything that you said, I said too.
It's going to be a very, very long haul project, and I really feel like it's going to be one of these things that you're like, yeah, I'm going to do that, and then 10 years later you're like, yeah, I think I'll keep working on this. Like, it's happening. We'll get there eventually. But I kind of think I want to write a book, not for the layman, but for like the whiskey nerd that's not a distiller, that hasn't done any production stuff but is curious about it, and try and like bridge that gap a little bit, where it's like, these are all the things that actually happen in production that don't get spoken about that much, and all of the variables that are kind of like, smoke and mirrors. And here's all the various chemicals and smells and tastes that come out of them, and sort of try and do it as like a hybrid between a coffee table book and some sort of reference manual. I have no idea if there's any sort of market for that, or how the fuck to write it.
I'd buy it.
I'd buy the shit out of that.
No,
Just
there's
like
definitely a market. It's a small and well-defined market. It's like, I have this book, Cask Management for Distillers, by Matt Strickland.
Matt Strickland, yeah, great.
I mean, it's a fantastic. There you go. It's a fantastic book.
Yeah,
Because
he's
if you're a total anorak like we are, you actually want to know something about the different parts of the maturation process and how the cask interacts with the spirit interacts with the cask, and with the oxygen and so on.
Absolutely.
And you can go right down the rabbit hole, and it's really great. So yeah, there's definitely a market. Sure, it's a small and very well-defined market, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be served.
Yeah, that should be written.
I think, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Matt's books. I love a lot of the technical manuals that are out there, but they are very oriented for people who have at least 1 foot in the distillation production sort of side of things. Doesn't mean it's unreadable by people who don't do that, but it's very much oriented to them. I just kind of want to do something that's very much oriented on the flavors. This is what we can smell and taste, and this is where they come from. Kind of trying to back calculate things to give people a holistic understanding of the things they're tasting. Because at the end of the day, I'm still a drinker, and the smelling and tasting aspect is the most exciting thing.
I think if you can connect those two in an accessible way, then there's a market for it, because there's a growing. I mean, come on, look, we're freaks of nature. when you think about the totality of the whiskey drinking population. People are nothing like us. Most people who drink whiskey, it's a casual decision in a bar in the moment, and they don't care. And nor should they. That's fine. That's where the bulk of the market is. But there is undoubtedly a growing number of people who have the kinds of conversations or variations of these conversations that we have that didn't exist 10 years ago, let alone 20. And that's probably continuing to grow, which is good for the industry. So the more information you can feed those people, the better. So I think there's going to be some kind of a growing market for that kind of literature as long as it's accessible. And I think that's the trick. If you can take the science of it and make it resonate with people in the way that the whiskey itself resonates, then I think that's a winning recipe. And I'd encourage anybody to do that.
Nice.
Well,
Cheers.
we know that Cleon and Gus, because of time constraints or whatever, have got to boogie on out, and we appreciate, as always. I mean, just listening to Gus is hysterical, and Cleon always just makes me laugh beyond words. But we're gonna give everyone a cheers for a year end that has been just wonderful, and just a real quick from each one around. What you're grateful for, Cleon? Go.
I am grateful for whiskies like this Long Road 21. Like I said, for the Lechek 22 is just a mouthful of gabagool.
Gus.
I'm grateful for the people. I'm not great with most people in my life, but the whiskey community is just outstanding and particularly tolerant of my autism and bullshit. So thank you to all of you.
Stuart.
I can't follow that one up really too much other than saying the people too. Whiskey is just here and there, but the people stay. So
Absolutely.
Cheers for that.
Well done. Chuck.
Yeah, I still feel like I'm kind of new to the whiskey community, and I'm happy to get to know everybody behind the scenes at Dramface. I really appreciate being involved with it, and can't wait to see where it goes next. And everybody who listens in on these podcasts and comments and reads the articles, that's all the best parts for me.
Well said.
Cheers
Adam.
to that.
Right now, I'm grateful for big old butts.
Should I ask if they're refill or first fill butts?
Let's not talk about
Fresh. He likes a wet sherry cups.
I don't know. I don't like the butts too wet. They gotta be emptied first.
Just me.
Oh my God, I did not see that coming. That's fantastic. Oh, Mike.
Seriously, this is out of this world.
Mike, follow up that one.
Well, obviously, I'm grateful for small pert butts. But beyond that, I would say I am grateful for distilleries like Ardnamurchan and Ardnahoe, who are actually just demonstrating that there's really, really interesting, exciting, and consistently good stuff coming through that continues to surprise and delight. Yeah, both of those distilleries. I mean, Ardnahoe obviously released its first stuff this year. Ardnamurchan has hit the 10-year mark this year. Both of those, I think, kind of give you a lot of hope. And there are others too, Lochlea and so on, that give you a lot of hope for what's going on in Scotch whiskey. And whatever the ups and downs are of the industry at a kind of a macro level, there are some really great creators of whiskey who are committed to producing quality liquid, and they're succeeding. And I'm hugely thankful for that, and that is something to celebrate, as is the community of Dramface, you guys, and all the people that commit time to reading it, to listening it, to commenting on it, and so on. So that makes me very happy going into 25.
Yep. Absolutely.
Cheers to that.
I'm going to wrap it up by saying, I wish I had something as clever to say. I like big butts, but
You cannot lie.
I cannot lie. It's whiskey it's about the people. It's been said here. The Colonials, you guys are tremendous. Dramface, all of the people who work in it, we in our WhatsApp community, it's just enriches us every day. The readers, the listeners, we all write for Dramface, and the interaction we have with everyone is just wonderful. And so thank you, everyone out there listening. Thank you, Dramfacers. Thank you, Colonials. And we're looking for an even better 2025. Here's to y'all.
Here, here.
Cheers.
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 Cheers.